Welcome to the Sheffield As Bill Sees It meeting. This is a main share meeting, and today it is with great pleasure and much gratitude that we welcome Summer from New Jersey, who's come to share for about 40 minutes, after which we'll open up for general sharing or if you'd like to ask a question. Thank you, Summer. It's wonderful to have you here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure just to be part of your fellowship before the meeting. Thank you so much for inviting me, and for everyone that is doing service that makes this meeting happen, this group occur every Sunday morning. And I know it occurs every Sunday morning because I was here more than a year ago. And, I was drawn to this meeting. Wonderful speakers, always. So with that being said, my name is Summer. I am a real alcoholic.
Hi, Summer.
Hi, Robbie. Hi, everyone. And I have a permanent sobriety date, and that is May 20th, 2020. To qualify myself a little bit, I know I chose a reading, and we're going to talk about the daily reprieve, but why I'm sitting here today is also important for identification purposes. All these videos are on. I'm so happy that I can be able to see your smiling, beautiful, bright faces. That's lovely. There's a whole screen of all of you. And, I am a real alcoholic. And the reason that I say that is not because it's just I want to be funny or cute, or I'm, not the fake one or the medium one or whatever. It's that it talks about it in the big book. And the qualifications of the real alcoholic describe me to a T. I have suffered from a physical, mental, and spiritual condition. So I have an allergy to alcohol. What does that mean? For anyone that's new here in the room, it doesn't mean that I'm going to drink alcohol and break out in a rash. I might. Some people might. I don't know. But what it means, according to the big book, is that I'm going to have an adverse reaction. I'm going to adversely react to the substance of alcohol, and I'm going to react differently than the next door neighbor that drinks alcohol responsibly or normally, or takes a couple drinks and can go out and do normal things and go to work the next day. That's not me. I have the allergy. What happens when I put alcohol in my system? I break out in something, yes. So I break out in a craving for more. A phenomenon of craving. So I want more than one, and then I want two more, then I want three even more, and then I want four even more than that, and then all bets are off, right? It's everything's out the door. And then it's coupled with this mental condition that I have that's oh so fun, that tells me I don't have that problem. I don't have the allergy. I don't have alcoholism, right? I can drink like a normal person eventually. I've been sober for this amount of time. I can drink again. Or what about this one? One day I'll beat the game. One day I'm unique enough to be able to beat the game. I mean, I'm a competitive triathlete. I win races. I can beat alcoholism, right? I got this licked. That's what my mind tells me. And that's the mental obsession. And that has to be smashed. But that's later on. And then it's all driven from this spiritual malady. Not talked about a lot, not referred to as a malady a lot, but it is a spiritual sickness. Just as though any other illness that we suffer from physically, it's the same, but it's spiritual. And I like to call it a God-shaped void that I've had in my heart since I was young. And I tried to fill it with all these different things, and it didn't work until I was able to truly fill it with a relationship with a higher power, with a relationship with God. I had the knowing God, the knowledge of God, the memorization of, what God says and what my higher power thinks to me. I had all that. Knowledge avails us nothing, right? Nothing. And half measures avail us nothing. So that didn't work. And I had to have that vital spiritual experience that for this real alcoholic Summer from the Jersey Shore, I had to go through the steps with another real alcoholic that had been through the steps before and could guide me using this big blue book, the book that I shunned and didn't want anything to do with. And so, the reason that I say all this is because, I went through all this. I suffered through the allergy. I suffered through the mental obsession. I told myself that I wouldn't, or that I would beat the game, that I wouldn't always be an alcoholic. What happened to me was this. I had gone and tried every other way to try to get sober, every way. And, I had 7 years of dry time. And I lost my job. COVID had happened, a pandemic, worldly, at the time, and it was United States, all over, right? The pandemic happens. I'm working for a travel company. So of course I lose my job because no one's traveling. They didn't have other ways to do anything. And I'm literally driving down the road in my vehicle on autopilot into a gas station. We have no defense against the first drink, right? And that drink was in my hand. I had drank it and I didn't even know what was going on. I didn't know how it happened, what happened, why that, I didn't know any of those things because yes, I had been substance free, alcohol free for that time period. I, had gone to a discipleship program and I'd worked for the rehab. I'd done all those things and I was free from the alcohol, but there was no program. There was no vital spiritual experience. There was no true relationship with a higher power, right? I didn't have that. So there was between suddenly the thought crossed my mind and the action that was taken, we have no defense, right? So that God did not come in. I didn't have that option because I didn't have that experience. So, that's how that all happened. Then I'm back in detox. And when I'm in detox, I am the person that says, nope, not doing Alcoholics Anonymous, not doing the big book, not going to participate in the meetings. I paid good money to go to this detox. It wasn't just like, I had to go to the fanciest one, right? I gave all my savings to go because, I had to I had to have the best of the best, right? I get there and I won't participate. What happened was I was separated from the substance, thank God. My mind cleared, but I still would not accept any of the suggestions that the people at this detox gave me. I didn't have the regular exit plan to go to meetings, to get a sponsor, to do all these things. They just said, try deep breathing and staring at a painting when you get anxiety. I mean, really, that's what it said on my exit plan. And, like I said, I tried every single way to get sober. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I come back to my apartment, the same apartment that I left 10 days before in the same situation, if not probably worse because there was dishes, everything's all over the place. My kids are back with me immediately and I have absolutely no coping tools. I don't know what to do. And that's where I came to the end of myself. And that's where I believe that this is a divine program with divine intervention, with divine words, because a phone call divinely happened in my life. Someone that normally wouldn't call me, that was checking on me because of word of mouth, that I had gone into a detox and told me she doesn't know anything about computers. She doesn't know anything about technology. She just says, why don't you try to get on that computer? I hear that they do Alcoholics Anonymous on the computer. That's what she said. Little did we know it's virtually AA was starting, to come onto the virtual platform. There was a couple meetings out there and, out of the many meetings that there were to choose, God put me right in front of a big book centered meeting. And that's what I needed. Because I needed this basic text and my sponsor was there. That became the person that became my sponsor. And I was able to go through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was able to help other people, and I was able to have that vital spiritual experience. And that's what qualifies me to be here today on this end. And today, I love AA. I mean, love is, that's a mild way of putting it, I guess. I love everything about AA. I love being on the virtual platform, not just because I'm what they call the Zoom baby, and I'm using that in quotes because, it's a virtual baby, but, that's people say, oh, she's a Zoom baby. She's a Zoom baby. But this is how I got sober. This is what worked for me. So I love it. And I love that this program not only has 12 steps, it has 12 traditions and 12 concepts. And I've learned more in this past couple years since I've really immersed into going beyond the 12 steps than I learned at the beginning. And I keep on learning. God keeps on giving me new things, new revelations, And today, I do have a host of friends. All of my best friends, all of my friends, my boyfriend right here, I met through AA, and I mean, I'm not saying that that's how you have to do it and you can't have friends outside it. That's not what I'm saying, but this is how it worked for me, and I have been placed in a position of neutrality and safety. I don't fantasize or think about a drink. I don't think about, what it would taste like or how. I don't have that anymore. That has been relieved. I am recovered from the hopeless state of mind and body that I wasn't before with alcohol. I wasn't. And, today I'm able to be in the role that God has assigned for me. He originally assigned that I be a mom, that I be, a girlfriend, a daughter, a sponsor, a sponsee, but I didn't know how to do those things. And so today, I'm able to be a mom. I have children that actually kind of look up to me and actually, not just listen to the words that I say. I see them, follow the example. I've seen my daughter say, well, mommy, have you made amends? Or mommy, are you sure that, is that truthful? Is that completely truthful? She doesn't know about all the steps and everything, but she does know a lot about the program. And it's not from me, her watching and seeing it. And she copies and mimics that. And, my mom will tell me that my daughter has made amends to her and, things like that. That's what's going on. It's being passed on to other generations. And, I'm able to be a girlfriend. I'm able to be a sponsor. I have grown the most probably in this program by helping other people, right? What does the big book says is that you one-on-one, one alcoholic helping another alcoholic is vital to what? Permanent recovery. And that's what we want. I don't want to have some, yankety yank, here and there sobriety recovery, 10 days. I don't want that. That's not what I'm looking for. And I'm not minimizing relapsing or coming back into the rooms. If you're coming back into the rooms, congratulations for getting back here. Welcome. And now to start to do the work is what I would say to do. Now get back into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Get a sponsor that's going to take you through the work. If your sponsor doesn't want to take you through the work, get a new one. That's what I'm saying. I mean, we're not looking for a temporary sponsor. We're looking for a permanent sponsor, someone that, we want what they have. We want what they have. I want what my sponsor has. I'll tell you that. I love her program, and she takes me through the 12 steps, and she's there when I practice the 10th step. She's there when I need to share my written inventory. I just did another set of steps with her, and, we're back going through again. And this is what AA is all about. It's not a one or done deal. We don't do the 12 steps and done. Okay, healed, done. No. And we're going to talk about that today. We have a daily reprieve based on our spiritual condition. So what do we have to do? We have to continue to do the steps. We have to continue to do this on a daily basis. Take other people through the steps. And when we're taking other people through the steps, we're also kind of going through the steps ourselves, right? Don't you think so? Yes? Okay. I've seen some nods. So yes, I think so. And then also we get to go through it ourselves with our sponsors. You know, everyone's different. Some do it, on a yearly basis. I'm feeling blocked. Let's go through the steps again. Whatever, it doesn't matter. As long as you're actively going through the steps, because we're changing. If I look at my inventory from 5 years ago, when I first went through the steps, I'm telling you that it's not the same. Like I'm not dealing with the same things, you know? And that's another thing. I'll go on a little side note with this big book. This big book speaks to us where we are at, right? So 5 years ago when I read this book, it was like, reading blank or, dead words. I didn't know what was going on. I had a sponsor that tried to explain it to me, tried to work, and, I got what I needed at the time. But it's alive and it's active and it's able to meet us where we're at. When I read page 84 today, it's different than when I read page 84 2 days ago, 1 year ago, 10 years ago. It speaks to me differently because this is divinely inspired. And I love that. And that's, again, why this program can it's never ending. That's why I love AA. There's no stopping point. I love that because, you don't get your degree and, I'm done with AA. I've graduated. I know someone that said, I'm part of another fellowship. She said, I already did that. I'm done. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't know if you really graduate, but okay, sure. But we're not done with AA. We continue and there's always room for growth, right? So with that being said, I hope that is a qualification of why I'm here. And this is my favorite. I'm not going to say my favorite reading from As Bill Sees It because, I'm not an avid reader of As Bill Sees It, but I will tell you I'm an avid reader of the big book. And when it comes to the 10th step, I'm all in. This is my jam. I love the 10th step. And that's what this is all about, this reading. So on page 27, Daily Reprieve, we are not cured of alcoholism. So we're not cured of alcoholism, but we are recovered from the hopeless state of mind that comes with alcoholism, right? What we really have is a daily reprieve. A reprieve is a cancellation. It's a postponement. So we have a daily cancellation of this illness that everyone said, doctor said, family members said, everyone said, nope, she's done. She's hopeless. She's not going to ever get past this alcohol. She'll always be in and out of jail. She'll always be here. She'll always be there. She'll never be a mom again. Well, I have a daily reprieve, a cancellation of alcoholism based on what? On the maintenance of my spiritual condition. So not my emotional stability, not my mental stability, not my physical, not my hair, not any of that. On my spiritual condition. What does that mean? A spiritual condition, that is where we're at spiritually, where we are with our relationship with our higher power, where we're at with our relationship with others. I believe that our higher power puts people in our lives so we can be in relationship with them. And what that looks like, what the Devilman said, that we're having trouble with personal relationships. Well, the opposite of that is I'm not having trouble with personal relationships. We're in good standing with other people. We're workers among workers, right? We have relationships that are filled with love, tolerance, kindness, goodness, all of those things. That is a spiritual condition, a maintenance of our spiritual condition that is good. And how do we keep this spiritual condition up? What do we do? So, I talked about a little bit about the steps, doing steps all the time, but 10, 11, and 12 are daily practices, right? 10, and this is coined for me. I made this up, so don't say it. I didn't hear it from someone else, and it's not in the big book, but I believe that step 12 is the relapse prevention plan. They talk about it in treatment centers. They say, here's the relapse prevention plan for you. Well, if I'm doing step 10, I find it impossible to want to pick up a drink because every time that fear selfishness, dishonesty, anything like that pops up, any of those isms pop up in my spirit, in my stomach, I call it that icky feeling that I get in my stomach. Guess what? I have a plan. And if I practice it, I'm relieved from it. So I ask God to remove it immediately, right? Then I go and tell someone about it immediately. It's not like, oh, maybe tomorrow, maybe tonight. No, immediately. You go and tell someone about it. And then if you've done something wrong, if you've harmed another one of God's children, you make amends immediately, right? And that's why God is in the moment. God is in the moment. So if we're doing things immediately, God is here with us. And then we go and resolutely, meaning we do this with purpose, intentionally, turn our thoughts from summer self, oh my gosh, I'm so guilty, oh gosh, I feel so bad for what I did, to someone else. I resolutely turn my thoughts to helping someone else. And I know I may sound like a repeat with this for those of you who have heard me share before, but neurologically, your brain cannot do two things at once. So if I'm doing something here and trying to pay attention here, impossible. You can do it halfway, but half measures avail us nothing. So if I am resolutely 100% turning my thoughts towards someone else, I cannot be concentrating on myself. Impossible. Your brain doesn't do it. People say, oh, I'm a good multitasker. I don't know about that. Multitasking is it, it is a skill and you can do it, but you're not doing everything 100%. You're just not. So if I want to 100% be relieved of alcoholism and have the maintenance of my spiritual condition, I'm in 100% concentrate on helping Robbie right now, right here and then, and I'm not going to be thinking about, oh, I feel so bad for what I did, or the fear that came up, or, oh, I had to make an amends and all this summer, So no, I turn and I help someone else. That's step 10. And so when I'm doing that and I'm helping someone else, guess what? It's gone. And I've heard Robbie share about this all the time. It's done. Just let it go. It's done. And that's why I believe step 10 is a relapse prevention plan. We don't have to pick up another drink because that guilt is gone. That shame is gone. Yes, we drink because we like the effect of alcohol, but also we like to numb the other things that were going on inside, that restlessness, irritability, that discontentment. That's part of the reason that I put a substance in myself, and when I don't have that, there's no need to, right? I have enough coffee. I have enough God. I have enough friends. I have enough sponsees. I have enough love in my life that I don't need to pick up another drink. And that's why I say permanent, right? Because I know that I'm going to continue to practice step 10 because God has placed people in my life, including my sponsor, including my boyfriend, including my parents, who will call me out on my stuff. They will be like, they'll call me out. I mean, they're not in the program, but still they can see when things pop up. They can see when there's something going on with me. I mean, I am a open book, an honest book, and I wear my emotions on my face and I get quiet and people can tell. And so I have those things around me. And I recommend, if you're new or if you're not so new, get those people into your life. Get what I call pillars, Pillars, pillars. They are around you and, they help keep you safe and keep things that are not safe from coming in. It's kind of like a boundary, but they're people that are around you and that keep you protected. And ultimately, God promises in the 10th step that you're safe and protected, right? And so I think those are some of the ways that our God keeps us safe and protected. Your sponsor, your friends, people that can speak the truth into your life. If you're not willing to let someone speak the truth into your life, then it may be time to go back a little bit and figure out what's missing and going on. I want someone to tell me, hey, you're acting like a meanie or whatever, you're being mean, or you're acting like a snoot, or you're being snobby, or are you sure that that's kind and tolerant? Even if it comes out of my 12-year-old's mouth and she says, Mommy, are you sure that that's kind? Are you sure that that's the truth? I'm okay with that, because I don't want to be the same person anymore. And I want to practice step 10 on a daily basis. And if I'm doing 11, which means thought through prayer and meditation, improving my conscious contact with my higher power, then I can trust and believe that when that icky feeling, that ism pops up, that fear, that resentment, that selfishness, that dishonesty, if I'm practicing 11, then God's going to remove it. Because I'm in the conscious contact with God. I'm improving that on a daily basis in the morning. I'm not so big on like rolling over and getting on my knees. I'll be completely honest. I'm like in a position like where I put my head down on the pillow, and that's how I pray. That's how I was taught to pray, and I've never changed. I put my head down, and it's like a act of worship, right? And I do that. And I do my morning prayer time, worship, songs. I do a meeting in the morning that really gets aligned with like how to start the day. It's a morning meditation. Everyone shares their devotions, their AA readings, or their spiritual readings, whatever it is. And that gets me hooked up. That gets me hooked up with my higher power. And as long as nothing's blocking me at the time, I'm good to go. And when there is something blocking, again, we have step 10. So after that, we of AA obey. Obey. What does obey mean? That means comply with directions. Obedience. Oh gosh, that's such a weird word, right? Obedience, submission. We don't want to hear that. No. I don't want to obey, right? Because it's those old ideas of like, from religion or from our parents saying, you better obey. I didn't want to hear that when I first came here. But guess what? I do want to have a life today. And in order to have life, it says in tradition 9, in the 12 and 12, it talks about that his drunkenness and disillusion are not penalties inflicted by people in authority. They result from the personal disobedience to spiritual principles. And right before that, or after that, it talks about that it causes death. Bill Wilson talks about the death, and it's not just spirit. It's not always physical, but it's that spiritual death. If we are not obedient to the spiritual principles, there's going to be some sort of death, whether it's physical or spiritual. Which is worse? Who knows? I don't know, but I don't want either of them. Okay. I don't want them. I want to be alive. I want to be free, happy, joyous, and free. Promises of the big book. I want a relationship with my higher power. I want all that. And God gives me all that when I'm obedient to the spiritual principles. Guess how many there are? Actually, there's probably more, but there's 36 in the big book. Not in the big book, in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's 36. And I'm sure if you really thought about it and really studied, there's more spiritual principles than that. But we have the 12 steps, the 12 traditions, and the 12 concepts, are the principle behind every single one of them. So we have so much opportunity to obey these principles. I know it sounds like, oh gosh, we don't want to, but that's the secret sauce, is to be able to obey when we hear what God wants us to do, and we hear it out of the mouth of Maureen or Dolores or Jacob or Bruce or Anita or, oh, Chrissy, hi Chrissy, or Chrissy or Robbie or whoever. When I hear it out of the mouth of someone else and I obey, that's the good stuff. That's when we're in alignment with God. And that's why step 11 and 10 go hand in hand. So at first, okay, we have AA obey spiritual principles. We talked about what obey means. At first, because we must. So we do it at first because, oh my gosh, it's an order. My sponsors tell me, you got to do it. You got to do it. Just do it. Just do it. Don't think. Just do it. Just do it. Do the action. Don't think about it. Stop asking why. Stop asking me the questions. Just do it. Okay. So I do it because we must. Then because we ought to, then we're like, maybe I should do this way of life because I'm starting to see some fruit. I'm starting to see some good things happening. I'm starting to meet some cool people. I'm starting to feel that presence. I'm starting to feel joy instead of distraught. I'm not waking up with that rock in my stomach. Like, what did I do last night? What happened? And I'm not feeling that way anymore. And so maybe I should. It says because we ought to. And ultimately, finally, because we love the kind of life such obedience brings. Obedience, complying with the direction of God. We end up loving this. We end up falling in love. And I told you my story. For those of you who are here at the beginning, I didn't want to do AA. I didn't want to. I did it because I had to. There was no other option. It was a must at that point. I didn't know what else to do. Then I thought, I kind of like this. I ought to do it. I ought to give it a try. And now I do it because I love to do it. And that's because I love God. And because I love what God is doing in my life, and because I love the people that he's placed in my life, I want to obey. And that's what when we talk to our children, right? At first we say to our children, just obey, just do it because it's the right thing. And then later we teach them the whys behind it, right? Like, well, we told you not to go out at night because it's dark and you could get hurt. And then, and then later on, they start obeying because they love you and they love they love seeing the benefits of what it's like to be an obedient child. They're rewarded sometimes, or sometimes they don't have discipline, and when they are disciplined, that's just an example of in the life of a child and a mom, or a child and a father. Now with me and my heavenly Father, I do it because I love God, and I love this program. And I know this program was put here specifically for each and every one of you. John, Sammy, Marlene, Maureen, the list goes on. I'm not going to say everyone's name. Val B from Long Island. Hi. So every single one of you, this program has been put here because God loves you so much. Your higher power loves you so much that he didn't want, or, the creator didn't want to see you going off on the wrong path. We don't want to see our children going out at dark, when they're 6 and 7 and, meeting up with a stranger. That's why we discipline them. That's why we ask them to obey, because we love them. And this is a drastic program of action. It's not easy. It's simple. The program is simple. Anyone can understand it. I told you my daughter, she went to an Al-Anon meeting and she understood it perfectly. She understood the 12 steps. She understands the big book. I can read her. We can talk about it. It's simple, but it's not easy to do because it's drastic, and not everyone is going to accept this drastic program of action. If you do, yay, consider yourself called, because that this is good news. That means you get the opportunity to have a brand new life, to recreate your life, and to start over. And you can keep the good stuff that happened before too, if you want, but you get to recreate your life. How many other people can you think of that get to do that? I mean, as alcoholics, we have the gift. We have the gift to have 2 lives and to get a awesome life in the second one. And whatever good happened before, the vacations, the cruises, the good times when we were kids, we can keep those too. But we get to recreate our life and have a relationship with a brand new God. We get a new relationship with God because we get to put all those old ideas behind us. Even if we had an awesome relationship with a higher power, something wasn't working if we were drinking. So we get to have an even awesomer one now, right? So this is hopeful. This is all good. So great stuff. This is the last sentence. And I know I have 6 minutes, so I'm going to kind of wrap it up. Great suffering and great love. We kind of talked about that. Are AA's disciplinarians. We need no others. We don't need any other disciplinarians, right? We don't need anything other than the suffering that we go through, because God disciplines those he loves. He does. And the great love of our higher power. That love is unconditional. That love is kind, patient, long-suffering. It doesn't keep record of wrongs, I can go on and on, but that is the great love that's offered to us in AA through our higher power. And the suffering, some of it we put ourselves through, some of it God allows, but it's only to make us into the person that we were originally supposed to be and that God has intended us to be. With that being said, I think that I will take a breath, because I don't think I took a breath this entire time, and I'm gonna share the last 5 minutes with the room, because I want to hear back from you all, and I want to thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. My name is Summer, and I am a real alcoholic. Thank you.